Welcome to the Red Ink Revival Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Norris. We're going to grow your leadership through neuroscience, psychology, and theology. Welcome, everybody, to the Red Ink Revival Leadership Podcast. So excited that you've joined us today. Today's episode is extra special for me because I'm taking from a podcast interview I had at Elevation Church in Charlotte, North Carolina, pastored by Pastor Steven Furtick. I was in a podcast room with the youth pastor, Pastor Tim Summers, dynamic and amazing leader, as well as a couple of other guys. Cole and Evan are the co-host of this podcast. Well, Evan happens to be my oldest son, and it was one of the greatest joys to sit and talk about anxiety and panic, and I really want you to enjoy this conversation as we did in this day. I'm so pleased with what Elevation Church is doing. Pastor Steven Furtick is one of the great leaders of our generation, and Pastor Tim Summers as well is just an awesome, intuitive, insightful leader that it's really, I truly felt like I was hanging with the A-listers and the celebrities just to be in that podcast group with Evan. Cole is a boss. He's 19 years old and such an amazing young man. And if you're ever around me, you'll find out just how much I think about my son, Evan. So sit back and enjoy our Elevation Youth, it's for the youth, Elevation Youth podcast around anxiety and panic.
Well, as we were sitting down, I'm going to be real, I was like, dang, this front desk girl is really cute. But I didn't think that I was lusting because I was experiencing a whole range of emotions. I just thought to myself, that girl is attractive.
Well, I don't think that's lust. My name's Evan. This is my co-host, Cole.
What's popping off?
I feel like I could be a Disney prince.
Cole just solved global warming right now.
Juice WRLD recently released a song, and he actually has passed away. I think Taylor Swift's overrated.
The number one podcast on Mars. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the number one podcast on Mars. Run the culture. Cole, this is really special.
He was crying on the way here, actually, so I knew it was special.
I can't get my words out right now.
It's okay.
It is really a special podcast for me. I have two of the most influential people who have ever influenced my life across the table from me.
Yeah, and next to you as well.
And no, I was talking about you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I got my dad here.
Papa Norris,
as y'all have been calling him. And I have my youth pastor, my boss, Tim Summers, and it
Papa Tim.
Papa Tim. Okay,
Yeah,
Papa Norris, Papa Tim. Yeah, for real. Like it's cool. It's a unique thing to have like two people that have marked my life more than close to anyone else. I'd say probably mom and my youth pastor growing up, and those would be the four people that have really made me who I am today. And so it's really such an honor to have you guys both here in the same room as me, and I'm super pumped about the conversation today.
I am as well.
I gotta say, yesterday I went to a house party for a rhythm night. This kid threw a house party.
How was it? Was it fire?
Cole, I went back, like I thought that I had graduated high school, and I was like, no, I'm like more mature, and I'm like, I don't deal with the insecurities and anxieties that I did as a high schooler anymore.
For sure.
I know my identity.
When you get the diploma, it disappears.
Yeah, it vanished, I thought. And I walked into that house and I was like, oh my gosh, my shoes are not cool enough, and my smile is not wide enough, and my hair is not crispy. Like, dude, I was all up in my head.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's just those kids.
Dude, I don't understand.
I don't know what happens when you get around youth.
When you talk about people, when they say that phrase, like, man, if I could go back, I'm like, no, I never say that. Like, I don't want to go back
to high school.
I never want to go back to high school.
Something I think about is if I could go back to high school right now with the knowledge I have right now, finish with a 5.0. I don't even. I probably
you still ain't at 5.0 level. Not gonna lie. Anyways.
All right. Anyways,
I realize like I still have a lot of social anxiety, and I feel like I really like even hit that last night, oddly enough. And even like the host, Joe, shout out to you. such a cool dude.
Yeah.
Like I had him filming Instagrams, and just like he is like just a natural at hosting people. People were walking in, just like introducing himself, working the crowd, just like connecting with everyone. And it like kind of exposed the within me of like, dang, I am not that. I've never been that. And I feel like it like kind of hit me with like a wave of comparison of like exposing like, dang, I wish I was like that cool at like hosting people and like hanging with people. Like, I don't know. It's like that weird like popularity structure that like popped back up within me of like, dang, if I could just hang out with them, then I would be accepted. And I think today I feel like there's a lot of people that deal with that, that social anxiety. And I'm curious, like what in Dad, you kind of have a fascination and an interest in psychology, and you have spent some time kind of digging into what the roots of anxiety are. So I'm curious, like what caused me to like it wasn't but 2 seconds of even pulling up to the house, I was already in a different headspace.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the question. And I do want to say what an honor it is to get to hang with all you guys. I feel like I made the A-list now.
Yeah.
I have finally arrived on the #1 podcast on Mars.
On Mars.
Yep.
So,
we don't have a whole lot of competitors out there, but we are #1. So
#1. I love it. I love it. From a physiological perspective, not just psychological.
Here we
What
go.
happens
Got
in
some
the
notes?
brain?
We popping it right now. Let's do it.
So what happens in the brain is, according to Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett, who is one of the leading neuroscientists with human behavior, she has done extensive research that when your brain is creating its circuitry, it is combining the different memories, as an example, with your present moment. So when you are in a space where you come into a bunch of teenagers, you are quickly, your brain on a millisecond level is grabbing memories from your past, and then it is endeavoring to create for you survival for your future. So if you had any kind of difficulty in your past with social connection or inner dialogue that made you feel like you weren't enough, that you weren't celebrated, seen, searched, etc., then your brain is leveraging the memory of that in your present. In some spaces of psychology, they call that an ego state, where you go back to that age and time frame, and then you begin to feel the emotion of that time frame to be able to, again, emote. So somebody else can have an exact same memory, but when they handled it, they may have handled it differently. So their brain has programmed to maybe creating solutions rather than getting stuck in that anxiety in that moment. Hey everybody, I want to slide right in here and thank you for joining us for today's episode. Let me ask you for a huge favor. If this podcast is providing value to you, would you consider subscribing to it wherever you get your podcasts? Also, if you feel that it would be valuable to somebody else, please like it, comment on it, and share it on your social media feeds like YouTube, Facebook, or wherever you populate networking. And one more big favor. If you like the show, please go review it. And if it's true for you, give us 5 stars. And when you review it and rate it, it gives our efforts greater opportunity to grow, and that would mean the world to us. Now let's go back to this week's episode.
Wow.
But even as I was a high schooler, why did I,
get anxious?
Yeah.
It sounded like you answered your question when you stated it, though. I think the root of your anxiety in those environments is comparison.
Yeah.
I think
but why am I comparing I think the deeper question is like, what is the function that like there's got to be some sort of like auto response even from day one, maybe even when I was younger, like a kid. Like when do you first start experiencing anxiety that would then build the memories that you would refer back to? I feel what is?
Well, anxiety, the first thing I think we need to remember is that anxiety is a God-given gift. It is not always bad or evil. That anxiety is a God-given ability to assess a threat and then create a solution. It's what motivates us to solutions. What happens is when that anxiety moves from a God-given healthy function into a chronic, now I'm exaggerating my imagination to assess threats that aren't even there, or I've exaggerated the quality of the threat, and I think that it's right in front of me about to consume me when it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pastor Steven talks about how you always need to have a little bit of anxiety
Okay.
to constantly like almost help you go to the next level in whatever situation you're in. If you're trying to like get yourself out of the comfortable state.
Yeah.
It's like you just need to have just a little bit, to be able to push you and to get you to come up with new solutions or find a new way. Because that can be a really healthy thing.
Yeah.
To keep your mind rolling and going.
That's good.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not to just, only put yourself in environments where you wouldn't experience any anxiety, but there is a benefit to even showing up and, back to the, house party example, to walk in the door, to introduce yourself, to be present.
Yeah, you said earlier a popularity structure, and I thought to myself, does that ever end? And I think it just changes form. Well, you might not be thinking you're thinking about like a popularity structure right now, because we're 20 and 30 and we're a little older, but it's just really changed form. We're still comparing ourselves. But it's not necessarily for the little things that don't really matter much when we're in high school, right? It was just for the follow.
Now it's like, oh, his house is bigger than mine.
Exactly. Exactly. It's on a bigger scale of status, or it's a little bit more internal, and we still try to look at the people that we work with.
Yeah.
Or, okay, something that I do, I'll be a little vulnerable. Something that I do is that I will look at people and then I'll find out how old they are. And they're like, yeah, I'm 34. I'm like, okay, so I'm 31. I've got 3 more years left and I haven't done this.
100%.
Okay, how long do I need to? And I'm like, that's still the popularity structure. That's still I just feel like it changes forms as you get older. And
wow. Yeah, 100%. I do that same thing.
Yep.
I'll see even, Cole, 19 years old, our youngest staff member at Elevation right now, absolutely killing it. And I'm like, dang, 19. When I was 19, I was still picking my nose, playing with Lego. Like, just, I'm like, this dude is so, like, far ahead. I get that. Like, even with you started pastoring at, like, 21.
I literally did that when your dad was like, yeah, I went to Bible college right out of high school, started pastoring at 21. I'm like, dang, 20. I am behind right now. I'm 19 and he was at 21 and now he has an Evan that's like 20. I need to get ahead. I need to get ahead right now. I want an Evan.
I want an Evan. I want an Evan. Yes.
Can we get a quote on that? Like that? No, that's really, that's
But
really
the
true.
thing that confuses me, what is the difference between anxiety and fear?
Ooh.
Because I felt both and they feel similar in the moment, but I think they're different, right?
Well, I think you would want to define the terminology because it's easy to use different words and assume there's differences. So you've got to define what do you mean when you're making a distinction between anxiety and fear. If you mean what's the difference in healthy anxiety and then chronic anxiety, and probably calling fear the chronic anxiety. The difference is that based on your brain's assessment mapping of your circumstances for survival first, and then secondly for belonging, then your brain's going to leverage everything it can for how to keep you safe and how to keep you connected. So it will create these imaginations and you'll exaggerate, and that's when it becomes chronic.
Wow.
And when you're dealing with so much of the fear circuitry that's just flooding your brain, your brain's on fire, you'll start having maladaptive or crazy behavior.
Wow.
You'll do stuff to calm or to medicate the anxiety. In fact, all sin has a chronic anxiety root system.
Well,
all of it.
Expand on that. What do you mean?
Interesting.
Yeah, well, like James chapter 1, verse 14 says that don't ever say when you're tempted by God. And he says we're tempted when we're drawn away by our own New King James Version, desires, King James, lust. The word lust there is the Greek word epithemia. It is derived from the word thumas, which is a word that has features of shame, features of grief, and features of anxiety. It's the anxiety here isn't the healthy version, it's more the feature of panic. And so when you have a system around you that helps compel panic, that is the precursor to somebody doing things that they now find unmanageable. In other words, I'm no longer able to pursue my values. I'm disintegrated internally. I have these values. These are the things I believe. These are the things I want. But now internally, I'm making choices that are disintegrated from that. I'm no longer aligned. That is how sin is conceived. And the word conceived there in verse 15 is a reference to being a captive. It is that you're now then imprisoned by it. So, yeah, anxiety, what happens is it becomes this explosive thing on the inside, is rumbling, and you are trying to figure out how to make sense of yourself. You have loss of control. You're dealing with identity issues. I'm not enough. I'm not valuable. I'm not worthy. And when all of that comes together, the panic then says, I've got to reach for porn. I've got to reach for alcohol, drugs. I've got to have illicit sex. I've got to do things that now are going to give me an alternate emotional cocktail to make me not feel the pain of the shame, grief, and anxiety.
Let me jump in again and tell you about two amazing opportunities for pastors, spouses, and senior leaders of ministry that will increase your leadership. And they're both free. I'm talking about monthly Zooms and also weekly process groups. First, we hold a monthly Zoom event that is 1+ hours with Dr. Todd Bowman, a psychologist and human behavior expert, and me. We usually have around 15 to 30 other participating pastors, spouses, and leaders. The monthlies have been amazing to help pastors collaborate around tactics, personnel challenges, and even how to navigate our own inner world. The skills you'll learn and a newfound pastoral community will expand your leadership mapping with everybody you lead. These monthly Zooms happen every month on the second Mondays at 6 p.m. Central Time. And then the second opportunity for pastors and spouses is our weekly process group that spans for 6 weeks. In our weekly process group, we provide tools that guide you into your story and help you rediscover you, redefine leadership, redeem life, and redream ministry. Weekly process groups give time to open your stories as you collect the dots, connect the dots, and correct the dots. Attunement begins with you making sense of your story. When you live with mindful attunement to your story, you'll find that the people you lead will begin to also make leadership sense to you in profound new ways. Our alumni tell us that this is one of the most impactful experiences they have ever had. We place ladies in groups of 6 to 10, and also we put men in groups of 6 to 10. The value of the weekly experience is $900+ per person. However, in this season, we're offering it to you for free. You can see some of our alumni sharing stories on our events web pages. You can find out everything you need to know to get involved in either the monthlies or the weekly process groups by going to redinkrevival.com. I hope to see you there soon.
Dang.
too many people be drinking some cocktails.
Yeah, that's the whole cocktail right there.
The compression cocktail.
Dang.
Wow.
I didn't even realize that, like, in moments of anxiety, we will turn to sin naturally.
Yeah.
So lust is a byproduct of anxiety. Is that what you were trying?
Well, lust, when you read it in the biblical terminology, it just is an intense emotion where the emotion has ratcheted up
and you have intensity to it.
Okay.
So when you think of lust, whether it's manifested in a sexual kind of context, or when it's maybe a food context, or maybe it has to do
You
with
can lust for food?
Some people can. I've heard. I've only heard about that.
Yeah.
You ever had chicken fried steak, bro?
I've seen on My Strange Addictions you can lust for a car.
That was crazy.
I didn't even feel like I was like, I realized as we were sitting down, I'm gonna be real, I was like, dang, this front desk girl is really cute. But I didn't think that I was lusting because I was experiencing a whole range of emotions. I just thought to myself, that girl is attractive.
Well, I don't think that's lust. Yeah, there's a difference there, I feel like.
Okay, well then maybe my thoughts went further than, dang, this girl is really cute. I feel like I
appreciate your vulnerability.
In my mind, I was like, she's a very attractive woman. Maybe I will ask for her number one day, but I don't think I was thinking I want to date her. I think like my brain just naturally thought of her in the premise of woman. I don't know. Does this make sense?
Yeah, I mean, that's just a product of being a teenager. You're still 19, big dog.
Oh,
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. Catch up, dude. Catch up.
Hormones, right?
I'm just making sure I'm not
trying to
broke.
figure out the hormones,
Hey,
bro.
you ain't broken, dude. The system's working as normal.
But I also feel like from a young age, that is like celebrated. Because even when I was a kid and I'd be watching Zach and Cody, if like Cody were to like, you remember when like they would like kiss somebody on the show and there would be like a wooing in the background?
Yeah.
Or like anytime you would watch like the two main characters, if they would like kiss, the crowd would go crazy.
Yeah.
And it was like glorified to like do things like that. And then I was like, dang, I want to kiss someone.
Well,
and I'm like 6 and I don't even know what kissing is.
Exactly. Cody got in your head, bro.
Yeah. Well, they talk about like, you can go back and watch all like Tom and Jerry and all these like old cartoon shows. And now like you watch them and you're like, man, there's a lot of sexual innuendos that are happening in these cartoons. Like, what the heck? But you don't really notice it. But it's kind of just ingrained in society, right? To where even, I got a 4-year-old and he's watching stuff and I'm watching it with him and I'm like, you know what? I don't know. I don't know if this is the best thing for you to be watching right now. And he's just like, he sees a cat and a mouse, but I'm like, I'm seeing something completely different. We got to switch this up.
Yeah.
And he'll be able to see it different because of the innocence of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
Dang.
Well,
but that is how your mind creates patterns. It's by slow routines, slow, subtle changes, not these big, massive events that have to happen or circumstances or situations that you put yourself in. It's just one thing after another. I mean, it's one picture sent to you after another, and one hashtag accidentally pressed.
That's what happened to me in 8th grade.
After another.
In 8th grade, I was on Instagram and I was going through the hashtags, and I was like, I never saw any type of pornographic image before this, but in 8th grade, I was on Instagram and I clicked a hashtag. It was like TBH. This is before Instagram was smart with their algorithm and anything could be on the hashtags.
Okay.
And I clicked and there was all of these images and I was like, what the? Like I turned off my phone. I had no idea what and then as like it started going through my mind, well, what was that? Yeah. Like why was that on Instagram?
Yeah.
And then I went back and I was like, what the heck?
And what's interesting about that is it makes an impression on you. It talks about being impressed on your heart. And I can't help but to think how important that is. Like when you walk down in Hollywood, all of the handprint, impressions in the concrete.
Yeah.
You notice that there are hundreds, if not thousands of them everywhere. We're constantly doing that.
Yeah.
Within our lives. Those pictures to the conversations to the people that you're interacting with.
Wow.
Constantly being impressed. And so eventually you become 30 years old.
Yeah.
And now these are the memories, these are the things that you're going back to and going, well, this is kind of what I've learned. This is what I've kind of built. These are the patterns that have kind of come up.
That's so good. I feel like even social media, it's like receiving a like. It's just one little impression, but it can be so addictive, and it can be that like, oh, that was acceptance.
Remember Remember when it was like you just get more than 10 likes and then it would turn over?
I would give myself
to
a
11?
like if I was not. Yeah.
But no one talks about that now.
Yeah.
Now what is it? It's like, well, you need 100 likes.
Yeah.
Or depending on the circles that you're in, you need 1,000 likes.
Yeah.
Or you need, let's look at the ratio of your followers to the likes. It just one after another.
Right.
It never ends.
Right. Yeah. So what's some practical stuff?
Yeah.
I want to, like, truly, I want to get to the place, and I know I've kind of beat this example to death, but like I want to be able to go into social environments or whatever it may be, and to just feel like I can be my true self and not be consumed with not be consumed, but not be emotionally drained by trying to navigate, like, am I enough or am I cool enough? Like, I just want to be able to, I think we have a lot of youth that are like, I just want to be able to go to school or just like be able to like really figure out who I am. Like, and I feel like the anxiety is a distortion effect on that, the chronic anxiety.
Yeah.
How would you like to reboot your personal finances this year? How would you like to take control of your money, turning small wins into big results? I want to encourage you to check out my wife Tina's financial coaching business at tinanorris.org. You might be wondering, what is a financial coach? A coach is someone who will personally team up with you to outline financial goals, inspire you with energy, help you stay focused on your goals, and so much more. You can do it all through Zoom, and she provides a free initial consultation, so there's no pain or cost to you for your first steps. Maybe you've been to several Financial Peace University cycles, left with great intentions, but struggled to execute. You need a trainer, a coach, another human that won't shame or judge you to help you stay on track. Tina is a certified expert that will help you with clarifying financial dreams, understanding spending patterns, reviewing all financial obligations, assessing financial and insurance needs, defining a spending plan, understanding your emotional profile related to money, building margin for savings and emergency funds, learning strategies for attacking debt, and referring recommended financial advisors to multiply your tomorrow. And she isn't selling any products, policies, or investments. She is the ultimate financial teammate. As Tina's husband of 30 years, I can tell you firsthand how much of a difference Tina's skills and giftings have made. Our financial portfolio wouldn't be a fraction of what it is today if it wasn't for her. She works with clients that are single parents, everyday people, pastors and church staff, as well as high-income professionals. I've known executives of Fortune 500 companies that manage billion-dollar budgets at work, but then come home to complete financial disorder and disappointments. Shame roars at them as they face the stresses of marriage, kids, and struggling retirement plans. A personal trainer can change the way you think, emote, and behave. If you have friends, church members, clients, or even young marrieds that are launching their financial lives, you will do them all a favor to have them check out this amazing option. If professional athletes need a coach to win the day to fulfill their dreams, then you and I do too. And you won't find anybody better to help you get there than Tina Norris. Set up your free consultation from anywhere in the world today. Go to tinanorris.org to find out all the details.
So what's a way to
Well, I
combat that?
I think for some reason I just got captured by the phrase of knowing who I am.
Mm-hmm.
That's such an elusive idea. Who am I?
Yeah.
You know, people will say, just be you. It's like, well, it's great, but who is that?
Who is that?
Yeah.
I think what we want is to follow the great commandment, to love God, love our neighbor as we love ourselves. So I think being yourself is learning what you value, and then being able to radically accept yourself
Great.
in view of your flaws and imperfections, that you don't have to be flawless and perfect to be able to be radically accepted by self.
Yeah.
So you know God accepts you, but do you accept you? Most of the pastors I work with, when I work with pastors working through their stories,
they'll say, I just need to focus more on how much God loves me. And it's like, I think you've done that for like 20 years. I think what you need to focus on is leveraging the love of God so that you can love yourself well.
Wow.
And you can't do that without facing your flaws and imperfections and then being able to hold that with sacredness and say, I got you. I'm with you. I'm connected with you. That's integration.
Yeah.
So now you take that idea and you've got what is the work that you do? Well, anxiety is always going to give you 3 P's that it's going to exaggerate. It's going to make things very personal to you. You think that it's just me. It's all an attack on me.
Okay.
And then it's pervasive. It's not just me. It's just one person. It's everybody.
Yeah.
And then it moves into permanence, where you think nothing's going to change this. I'm always going to be socially anxious. I'm always going to walk into a room and everybody's going to judge me. And I'm always going to be the one that has, a booger hanging out their nose or something that's, weird, cringy. And so what you have to do is recognize first, and so what I say is put a lid on the 3 P's. So lid is listen. What's the narrative of each one of those 3 P's? So it's personal. What's the narrative that I'm hearing? Then you identify what the threat is. Identify the generalization. So the enemy lurks in generalizations. It's what is called in psychology threat generalization. And the idea is that as long as you don't know what the enemy is or what the threat is, everything's a threat. So everywhere you go, like when you walk into a space like that, everybody
that just makes me think of even Adam and Eve. They hid from God, and even God was a threat to them.
Yes.
That is so interesting.
Everything's a threat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think they were experiencing anxiety in that moment?
In the garden?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. They had never in a moment experienced chronic anxiety. And in that moment, for the first time, they're flooded with fear.
Wow.
And when they do, they are scrambling for any weird thing they can, and then they cover themselves with fig leaves. What is that? They're projecting an image of themselves that's man-made, that is not what God designed.
My gosh.
So that back to that threat generalization. So you have this idea.
Going too fast, Patrick. I gotta load things.
Well, I just feel like back to social media. It's like we don't clothe ourselves with. In a sense, we put.
We don't put
but
fig leaves on. But
it's
we do
this
something.
projection of I'm put together. I know how to. I'm on the latest trend. I'm relevant.
Filters are the new fig leaves.
Yeah. Well, here's something.
Dang.
Well, here's something that I think is real important is to assess what is it that I desire.
Okay.
So I desire likes. I desire for people to applaud me. I desire to belong to certain specific individuals. But then the question is, what do I emotionally feel I need? Because it's that emotionally feeling I need something that's going to get me upside down. I could want it. Like I want likes, but do I need likes? If I need likes, then it's built into what Hebrews 12:14 says are roots of bitterness that spring up and defile. Okay. So what's going to happen is you're going to have this need driven by anxiety. Why do I need it? So I've got to explore what are those threats? What are the things below the surface that I'm trying to meet the need of emotionally that's telling me I've got to have this or I won't survive and I won't belong.
Wow.
So
Dang.
Ridiculous.
So that, just back to the lid, just so that
You can
finish it out.
You can close the lid.
You got to listen to the narrative of each
identify.
one. Then you have to investigate what is the generalization or the threat, and then you have to disrupt it. So you have to know truth. Once you know what the enemy is, so you narrow down what the enemy is, your brain quits finding everything in an anxious threat. You narrow down, you know that it's one threat. Then you can disrupt that one threat with truth, both rational truth and biblical truth. And once you do, the brain's like, I don't need to mess with that anymore.
Okay, so I like this, but I feel like there's a tension there here when you say disrupt, because for me, as someone who loves to challenge and
bring it, man, let's do it.
Borderline aggressive.
Let's do it.
People. No, and I'm not going to challenge here, but I know there's a lot of teenagers.
Yes.
That are not like that.
Yeah.
So when they hear the word disrupt, they're like, wait, so now I have to be aggressive. I have to be offensive I have to go on, the offense and begin to try and, disrupt this idea or this thought that's been scaring me for years, has caused me to feel, shame and pain. So what would you tell the teenager that would, maybe they identify themselves as passive or just shy or calm or, really they identify as I'm chill.
Yeah.
I'm chill. I don't
Nonchalant.
I'm nonchalant. I'm shy. What would you say to someone like that when they hear the word disrupt? And that might be a thing of like, ooh, that's not who I am.
Yeah. Well, I think all of us have a tendency to have disruptions. It's just that it's selective. So it'll say somebody's chill. Somebody's like, I'm passive. I'm just not very aggressive. Well, there is the great probability anxiety is surfacing in your life in different places. It may be that you are chill because you are avoidant to the anxiety. The anxiety is such, you're like, when I get into a crowd, I'm going to act chill because, and here's the deal, when I'm chill, I'm in control. And anxiety thrives on, if I'm not in control, I'm anxious. And so when I'm anxious, I try to have control. And when I try to have control, it makes me more anxious. So it's just crazy cycle.
Yeah,
so a
it's a
person
circle.
who's in that whole chill zone, question is have they ever assessed why are they so chill? Is it because they're really at peace, or is it because of social anxiety that I have to avoid the torment that I often feel when I'm in a social setting? So then what you would do is you would just simply identify what's the emotional, spinning I have. What's the narrative? I'm listening now. What's the narrative that's telling me that if I show up, if I'm in this space and I'm really me, am I going to survive and will I belong? And what's the narrative that's threatening that? I narrow the generalization down.
Yep.
So as an example, if I come into a space and I say something that embarrasses me, I sabotage with something that I think is cringy. When I say that, my brain immediately jumps to, see, you're never going to be popular. So the first thing that you'd want to do is ask yourself, has anybody ever said anything cringy, ever, in the history of humanity and still been popular? And then if I can identify one person, one scenario, that's enough truth that my brain's like, see, that's not the threat that I thought it was.
Yeah.
And then the anxiety begins to reduce.
Hey, I want to invite you, if you are listening and thinking, I have so many questions I would like to ask. We would love to address your questions on an upcoming episode. In fact, we may do an entire episode on the one question that you have. If you will simply email us at redinkrevival@gmail.com, we will catalog all of these questions, and we would love to be able to address the things on your heart and on your mind. So be sure to get in touch with us, and we'll take the journey together.
Gotcha.
I think you
That's
answered
good.
that question yourself.
One step, one little thing at a
Keep
time.
bringing
one
it, yeah.
truth at a time.
You said
that's
this
great.
during the sex talks with you and Rebecca. You were like, for any youth out there who's struggling with porn, how do I stop? One day at a time.
One day at a time.
I think it's one step at a time. That's applicable in many different ways. But I've been trying to figure out with like people who are struggling with getting into the mindset of anxiety. It feels like what you're like almost it's an addiction to anxiety. What is the difference between an addiction and a habit?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the only like a habit is just something that you do every day. But if you're doing it every day, isn't there a point to where you become addicted to it?
Well, it depends. Habits are not always bad. Addictions are.
There it is.
Or unhealthy. A habit, I have a habit to brush my teeth every day, but I find people actually think that's healthy for me,
Okay.
right? That's a habit.
Well, I'm going to ask the question I want to ask out front then. When does it become a difference between you have a habit of having sex and you are addicted to having sex?
Well, anytime you have a value system for which you cannot manage the drive and it creates consequences, that would be an addiction.
It creates a long-term effect to where you're going to have to go back. And that's where they like, what's the word? Withdrawal. Where you have a withdrawal, that's when it is becoming an addiction.
Yeah.
Good word.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's the difference. But I want to go back to that area of working with teenagers that are in the chill.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the space you're an expert. You live in this space. No. So what would you say to the teenager?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't consider myself an expert, but I think that's a big thing that I've been trying to a tension that I've been trying to manage. Okay. Where I'm like, my 14-year-old son, he's very chill.
Oh, Brody
this
is
dude
the
is
chillest dude.
Negative 10 degrees Celsius.
And I mean, he's just
love Brody.
super, and I love it. It's something, and the question doesn't come necessarily from my son, but I look at that and think of his future, and I'm like, man, I want to teach you how to be direct and be, aggressive sounds like a negative connotation, has a negative connotation to it, but I want you to be upfront. I want you to be able to address some things and not be afraid and be able to, because sometimes I feel like you have to do that. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to go on the offense and throw a Hail Mary. Yeah. It's a lot different than throwing a 2-yard pass, right? Yeah. And that can make you feel good, and that's good, and that's the one day at a time thing. But sometimes time's running out.
Yeah.
Sometimes the defense is coming at you like crazy, and you just have to lob it up. What I'm finding is that there's a lot of teenagers that won't even lob it up. Mm. They won't even. They're just, nope, that's not me. And I'm like, okay, like how? All right, tell me about that. Tell me what. And when you talk to them, it's a lot of what they've gone through.
Yeah.
They've tried before. They've been shut down. And this is where I heard from Paul Scanlon. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He's brilliant. And I had the opportunity just to hear a little of his, I think, a master class. And he talked about raising your kids and not ruining their brilliance.
Wow. Okay,
now that's a
good word.
This whole phrase has jacked my parenting up, okay? Because I'll look at Genesis, my 4-year-old, and he is not chill. Okay, he is not the definition of chill. And my wife is like, man, he needs a little more discipline. I'm like, yeah, for sure, we'll discipline him, but we gotta be careful not to ruin his brilliance. Wow. At such a young age, I'm like, okay, yeah, that wasn't good, but is it not good because I would never do that? Is it not good because my parents got upset at me for not doing that? Right? It will take him 3 hours to clean his room. Yeah. Okay? You'll find some people some parents get upset about, why does it take you so long? Yeah. And I have to literally train my mind to go, okay, just keep cleaning your room. Yeah. Keep cleaning your room. I have to tell you 42 times. But in 3 hours, he cleans his room. He does the same thing that another child would do in maybe 10 minutes, but does it in 3 hours. The value is still there, but he has a different way of doing it right now. Now, yes, there's, you want to teach your kids to
that's good.
Be able to be efficient and all that kind of stuff. But it's the same way with teenagers. Yeah. You're like, okay, it doesn't always have to be the way the preacher says it. Right, this is where you get in the idea of are they preaching at you, or are they coming alongside with you? Right, this is where churches get it really messed up.
Yeah,
and that's something that I've had to really kind of assess and evaluate in my own life, because I do want to go, no, you got it all wrong. Let me show you how to fix it right now. Yeah, and it doesn't it doesn't compute with them. Yeah, wow. They're like, no, this is going to take me 3 months. And you're like, but it would take me 3 hours.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be so much nicer?
Yeah.
But then they wouldn't learn for themselves.
Wow.
Yeah. Then they don't actually create the pattern. Now they're just being told what to do.
Yeah.
So I think walking alongside with them, and then as a parent, as a pastor, as a person, as a leader, you become better, because now, I walked alongside with you. I know how you do it now. You
Yeah.
just helped me gain perspective.
Let me break in one more time and tell you about reddinkrevival.com, REDINK revival.com. I want to encourage you to sign up for our blog e-newsletter there, as every month it will hit your inbox with a provocative blog post with topics about theology, biblical architecture for emotions, and how understanding the human brain is so helpful in giving more insights to various biblical texts. We also will feature updates on our monthly events to help you keep up on the ready for everything that is available to you. Also, I'd like to remind you, if this podcast is serving you with valuable insights, to subscribe to the podcast. If you think someone else would benefit from it, please review it, comment, and share it on your social media platforms. If your friends are privileged to know what's helping you, who knows what God might do in their life with the same resources. That would be a gift to us, and it would be a gift to all your friends. We're holding you in our hearts and believing God with you for a year of supernatural increase.
That's great.
And what's crazy is I'm going through that right now with my mother, but in a totally different avenue. It's not cleaning my room. It's dealing with my anxiety. I didn't even realize that I was anxious until I started going to counseling. And we started talking about my upbringing. And every single time my mother and father would get into an argument or I was put inside of a stressful situation, my body would react to where I felt like I was going to throw up. Like it would be terrible. I'd be in such pain. I would be like, Mom, I'm about to throw up. I can't do this right now.
Yeah.
And I just thought that when I'm a kid, I think, oh, my parents are arguing. I get sick. That's normal. But talking to my counselor, she's like, no, you were experiencing anxiety from a
Elevated
young
emotion,
age.
yeah.
And I discounted it. I discounted it to where like even now I'm in denial about being anxious for 80% of the things I go through. Unless it's like really bad anxiety, I put it away. But I also feel like due to my upbringing, it was not like mental health in the African American community or even in the world was not something that it was heavily focused on.
Yeah.
So now when I talk about it to my mom, it's kind of like the cleaning my room. Because it's not anything that she was experienced to when she was growing up. So when I'm like, yeah, I think when I was younger, I was dealing with anxiety when I was going through this. And she's like, really? I didn't go through that.
Yeah, what do you think? What's the product of that? Because I feel like people in this generation, that word gets thrown out a lot.
What, mental health or anxiety?
Anxiety. Like, I have anxiety. I'm very anxious. And it was something that I never really heard a lot about growing up. I don't know if it was like that
either. Huh?
And so I don't know if are we labeling anxiety the right way?
Well, it's interesting because in, again, Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett's work, she has kind of thrown in a disruption to all neuroscience research.
Okay.
Because what she has done is looked at these different categories of emotional labeling and then taken it across nations, cultures, and tried to explain, tell me what you're feeling, and then what's the name you're using it. And so we end up having, you and I, Tim, could have a completely different emotional experience and call it the same thing.
Yeah.
And so what our brains are doing is simply taking what we can understand of each other and then trying to put a name on it. So, I think there's a lot of things that may not necessarily be anxiety.
Yeah.
But they are uncomfortable, emotional experiencing.
Wow,
and so we just throw that towards
So we
it.
throw that in there.
Yeah, something that has helped me calm my anxiety at times is just to stop and name it.
Yeah.
And try
Great.
to expand my vocabulary. And I think you may have told me this too, that that there is some sort of reaction in your brain just by giving a name to what you're feeling that can help support you in handling whatever that thing is.
Yeah, Dr. Dan Siegel, who's kind of premier attachment parenting guru, he says you got to name it to tame it.
Name it to tame it.
Name it to tame it. If you can get on Google and just get the feelings wheel out, feelings wheel it, find
Yeah.
out the names of the emotions, and then identify what that is. What
Yeah.
is the emotion?
That is
Your
super
brain
helpful.
immediately moves further from the generalization into the specific threat. And when it does, then you're able to
Then you
calm.
can calm.
Name it.
Y'all better be taking notes on
I
this.
am taking.
My
Like I
goodness.
thought I had some things that I wanted to bring up, but you know what? Nothing I'm about to
Dang.
say is gonna be at the level of Papa Norris.
Papa Norris
He
in the
came
house.
ready.
He said, Dr. Dindadan did this.
Yeah, he's
Research
named
and-
more doctors than I've gone to in my entire life today.
You guys are awesome.
This is great. Yeah.
Oh my
This is
God.
great.
I was reading this article on Google and I don't know the doctor's name, but they were like the only fear that humans are actually disposed to is the fear of loud sounds. Everything else that we adapt. Would you agree with that?
I feel like people
Is
would
it
be
loud sounds?
loud sound.
Loud. I think it was
I
loud
thought
sounds.
it was falling.
How would we
Yeah.
have? How would
We all have a natural reaction to
Yeah,
falling.
think about it.
We learn to have a fear of falling.
No,
Nobody.
that's insane.
Nobody has a fear of falling being born.
Have you ever seen a? Like, I really think it is a fear of falling. Have you ever seen a newborn when they do that?
Yeah.
That's them falling
Oh,
at such
We
a
just
young
got-
age.
the two innate fears
Two.
are fear of noises and falling.
There it
Those are
is.
the two.
So we were both right, bro. We were both right.
That's collaboration.
Isn't that just like
that
the Lord?
collab.
I
Tim Cole collab.
forgot the second
Thank
part
you,
of the
Dunstan.
article.
Appreciate
Yeah,
that.
thank you, Dunstan.
But I think that's dope
Yeah.
because everything else, like you can think, am I scared to go into the? Well, the only fear that I'm really born with
Mm-hmm.
is falling and loud sounds, and I'm not about to fall in this party.
Yeah. Well, that's so funny because one of the most memorable and impactful messages that pastors ever preach. For
Why am I
me-
anxious?
No, I was gonna say.
okay.
When anxiety attacks. We're just guessing here.
I wanted to finish your sentence.
Don't
and we
stop
had,
on
like-
6.
Okay.
No, I don't remember the title right offhand, but the main point was that what isn't healed gets handed down.
Yeah.
And even on this topic of anxiety, like it's so much more significant than just going into a room and feeling socially anxious.
Yeah.
It truly is generational.
Yeah.
Of I've inherited
Wow.
the
Epigenetics.
anxiety that the epigenetic. I've inherited that from my ancestors, from you.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, hello. Hello.
Papa
from
Norris.
But then I'm also going to be passing down what isn't healed in me. And so even on that point, like there are so many fears that, even from the Garden of Eden that have been handed down,
Yes.
that have been developed. So I'm not just combating
Oh, no.
my own experiences or a moment in high school where I felt like I wasn't. I'm combating the generational
Yes.
anxiety. And so I just feel like all of this is
Well,
so
actually, the theological construct of that, I think, is interesting because when you get into the Bible and you hear this word of the nature of sin,
Yeah.
what if the nature of sin, what if it is the trauma that Adam and Eve experienced that got passed down, that our brains now are organizing around for survival and belonging?
Yeah.
And so that sin not only has the holy offense against God, but what if that sin is what disrupts how we live our lives? And that sin being a nature, not a behavior, and it
Yeah.
being something that is a wound profile.
Yeah.
So you got epigenetics, you inherit it, but also when you're born and your child is, 1, 2, or when you were 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4, all the way to, Cole, you said you were 19. Do you know that your brain, your prefrontal cortex isn't even fully developed yet?
Dang.
You're not gonna
You got
You're
that
not gonna
tiny
be
brain.
fully
You ain't
developed
even
till
big brain
you are-
yet, dude.
till you're 25. And then when I think of your 4-year-old,
Yeah.
your 4-year-old is the one that takes 3 hours, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So your 4-year-old, believe it or not, from age 4 to 5, I'm going to throw one more doctor out just for
Oh,
credibility.
I love it.
Do
I
it.
love it.
Do it.
It's
But
helpful.
Dr. Tina Bryson, her and Dan Siegel are the foremost authorities on child development. And
Dan
I
Siegel.
was privileged to be in a mentoring group with Tina
Wow.
mentoring. And she has pulled out how that when your child is up to 4 years old, the left hemisphere of their brain is radically developing. But when they hit 4, it slows down and the right side radically begins to develop. So your 4-year-old, when you're thinking, why can you not do this? Their brain is nothing but scrambled eggs. They're trying to just figure out the organization of the circuits in the brain.
And so what you're doing, I just want to applaud, of having the curiosity. The reason I love the way you approached it is because you are focusing in on knowing the child, which when you do that, the child has an attachment bond and they become securely connected to you, which actually is the foundation for success in life.
Wow.
That if you're securely attached, the maladaptive tendencies towards anxious acting out is not going to be there, because they've learned that even though I do something wrong, I'm flawed, I'm imperfect, that repair is now something I can be resilient with. I'm resilient. So if you think about a 4-year-old's brain, you think about a 19-year-old's brain, then you think, how does the brain evolve? Well, the brain evolves largely from the time they're born to the infrastructure of mom and dad. So if you have an anxious mom or an anxious dad, your brain is going to organize with the scaffolding. It's going to build off the scaffolding of mom and dad's brain. So when you think, where does anxiety come from? Well, it's generational and it's environmental based on your parents' generational experiencing. So you come out with a tendency, a predisposition to actually being crazy long before you actually have the choice to do things.
Man, I can't do this no
Okay,
more.
is it
Pat.
on the left hemisphere, is that the creative side? Or is it the right? So it's the right?
I always get mixed
I
up
don't know. Patrick?
you know,
Left is
Dr.
logistics. Left is logistics, and then right is like creativity, right?
Yeah,
I feel
I
Someone
think
like Dunstan.
something like that.
I think so. Dunstan's on it.
Who knows? I don't know.
Dang, this has
Wow.
been.
We need like a part 2, 3, 4, and 5 with
Packed.
Patrick and Tim.
We need to talk about, this is totally different, but on part 2, 3, 4, and 5, we need to talk about how the only sin that ever made it into heaven was pride.
Yeah,
Yeah, he threw that in a meeting, and I've been thinking about it
Dang.
since.
yeah. So right brain is creative. Yep.
Right brain's
Yep.
creative? What
Left
do they
brain is
call the left
logistic.
side?
Functional.
Functional?
Functional.
Oh, okay. I said logistic.
That's
Yeah,
still,
functional
works.
That's locked in.
This has been gold, man. Thank you guys so much for coming on.
Yeah.
It's been an honor
Thanks
to
for
talk
having
to you,
us.
Papa Norris, Papa Tim.
Papa Tim.
You guys,
Tim.
you guys know how we end these things?
I probably should know, but I don't know, Papa Norris.
I don't know. I do want to say before you end it, just what an honor it is, and to actually get to share some space with Pastor Tim and you guys. I've watched you all from a distance, and I feel like y'all are all celebrities. You're A-listers, and I just get to have a seat at the table. It makes me feel honored. So thank you for letting me be a part.
It's
Thank
an
you for
honor
your
to sit
wisdom,
across
for
from
real.
you.
This is
My
great.
goodness.
Yeah, you got them doctors.
I'm going to have to get your
on
number.
deck.
I'm going to have to text you all the time. All right, this is what my kid's doing. Can you help me out?
What part of his
Why
brain
you
is
do
he
that?
using right now?
Why you on crackhead mode right now?
Evan,
Yeah.
what song you trying to sing?
Honestly?
I've been thinking about that.
What you been thinking about?
I've been thinking about the West Virginia Country Road song.
Y'all be singing songs?
Ooh,
That's how we end
so we
every
ended on
podcast, acapella.
acapella style.
If you've been watching our podcast and you're like, why the heck is there a clip of them singing at the end?
Yeah.
It's because at the end,
Why at the end?
we started it and then
You know
we did
what?
it the podcast after, and now it's like our thing.
We're just bad at outroing. And
Yeah.
we figured if we just sing it out, that'd be the best. So let us know in the comments, what song should we sing next week?
Next week. But this
You
one.
said Country Road?
Country
Road.
Road. Boom, da, boom,
Take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia.
Country Road.
Dang, you hit that baritone like crazy.
Thank you.
That was great.
But you know what you need to hit like crazy? That share button. Oh, okay.
I felt that.
Tim wants to take us to
Felt
church.
I surrender
I don't know this song.
Oh, come on.
all to thee.
Every
my
praise. All right. This has been Run the Culture. It's been an honor having you guys. Be sure to tune in next week. We'll catch y'all.